Sheila here with Series Talisman. This is Jupiter Hour, Jupiter Day. And I want to talk about the crystal blue kyanite, particularly the deep blue shade um, and the frequency of the color blue. So the color blue came to me yesterday as I was delineating Pavel Cherenkov, um, and then it appeared to be that he was looking at the frequency of the color blue. Um, Yeah, some folks say that the color blue is more difficult on the lasers. I don't know if this is true, but another thing with color blue is associated with truth, communication. Um, Deneb Algedy, for example, we would pick the color blue as well. And when we have a Mercury retrograde and Mercury shade, which I think Mercury is about to, yeah, the moon is with Mercury, is about to leave its shade period, then the blue crystals can assist in remembering forgotten details and communicating more effectively. Particularly the blue kyanite, it permeates the darkness and transmutes. It's kind of like a good frequency stone. I used blue kyanite in several occasions. One when I went to therapy and had to communicate something that was impossible to communicate. And unfortunately, the therapist was MK Ultra, but and but on the side of being able to communicate in a way that's not emotionally overflowing, then blue kyanite really does raise the frequency and connect us to truth. I just saw I'm watching the interview with Epstein's niece, and she talks about how ritual abuse was done in the family. Okay, basically there were trauma bonds so that nobody would speak. Blue kyanite negates that. Okay, um, I think I mentioned several times that I had a good friend for 10 years, and later the campaigns, the social engineering campaigns, the MK often in particular, were extremely aggressive on both our psyche. But I remember that when he had his own academic researcher boss sexually harassing him and other female students, he noticed that taking a blue kyanite with him raised the frequency and allowed him to get along well with that person. And for a while, we thought we might save in the world with blue kyanite. And I bought a ton of blue kyanite, later black kyanite. Then the witchcraft began on my crystals. Okay, I mentioned the jade egg story, but even before that, um, there were attempts um, to how should I say that, to prevent me from healing from what I now know is some sort of ritual abuse, and and also that other person that was even more energy sensitive than me, and it's safe to assume that there can be origin of such trauma in the background there as well, um, or it's unsafe to not take that into account. So yes. Um, so what blue kyanite does is basically negating the trauma bond silence pact, because it balances the emotional overwhelm and opens venue of communication. It Because it balances the energy, it can lift um, life energy. So some people may have, I did not have that, but some other people may have erotic response to that. After several years, I would be like insinuated that that blue kyanite thing kind of okay, so different people can have different energy sensitivity to that. I needed that to heal from, to even be able to communicate what I'm trying to heal from. And unfortunately, that was met with a shit ton of rituals. Those things are so entangled that really, except for the instances where a person threatened me or downright told me that nobody did anything to them, and which basically meant that that was also them, at least also them, um, um, or also them consciously, which I really didn't want to believe. Um, but that is something that is indeed extremely intricate. I have good reasons to assume that the Epstein ring is affiliated with the entire topic. Um, Whether it's, and Epstein's niece here says that they exposed Epstein, they exposed Diddler, they didn't expose the others, and this is something so pervasive that people cannot even have therapy because they would contact the therapists. Um, for those who heard the episode of Peggy Von Roy in Annika Luka's podcast, she had a hard time finding a therapist because the attacks was still on, and they do attack therapists as well, or they would only allow access to therapists that are within the cult, which basically means they actively kidnap and bring children to be ritually abused. That is, and that would mean that there would be the therapist would have did in himself, so that the patient would never be believed upon seeking safety and to exit violence. Um, so a little bit about the work with the crystal blue kyanite is important to remember, just like with essential oils and other things, that it will negate the silence pact. It will encourage authentic and true communication. And it will beg the question, okay, because if a soul is 41 years on the planet, seeking to heal from something that accompanies it for probably that time, and each time there would be a different attempt to attack, to kidnap, to traffic, then that begs the question that something is incredibly, incredibly wrong, beyond wrong, in way too many segments of society, whether it's academia, healing professions, even crystal healing. Okay, I just mentioned that working with blue kyanite, it began to open venues of communication that basically heal the timelines of sexual harassment and those type of things. And then there would be aggressive work to prevent healing. And I saw it with both me and another person that was using that kyanite when he was meeting his otherwise sexually harassing boss. Okay, it was two men. Which further exposes, if I go back to the first energy reading today, it further exposes several things. And this is how the trauma makes people susceptible to display patterns of sexual boundary violation to various degrees, from the tender to the P reading that I gave, and how the different frequency or something like holding a kyanite, a blue kyanite, can be way more remediating, and that's why they tried. There was an attempt to really make me throw away my crystals or anything that would not make me energy susceptible to that type of mind control. Okay? Ken. And I'm highly unlikely to be the only one dealing with that. But I was surprised how something as simple as holding a blue kyanite. I noticed that I'm also sensitive to the shapes, so the geometric shapes, the spherical, okay, the round shape. I find very very good for uh, refining or softening thing, or no, it's something I don't know how to express, but the refined form of the round shape I find very useful. I use the raw shape when I was just beginning to communicate, and now I use the refined shape. The deep blue I find very useful for communicating truth that are difficult to communicate. The lighter ones are also beneficial. Um, and thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. And huge boundary setting in days of ago. um, and the egg shape, like I said, is birthing and attending to conception, fertility, and the issue at hand. Okay, so when I talked about the jade egg and how there was dissociation involved with sexuality, that I could not even permeate to coherence, um, and that showed up in a real physical form with the crystals, while other crystals could also hold these type of things. The egg shape reminded, even without a crystal, reminded of anything to do with conception and dissociation because of those rituals. The kyanite, the blue kyanite, is very good for communication, and again, negates um, negates exploitation timelines. It will affect the sexual energy. So for people that find it too elating, they might want to go 2 fingers beneath the belly button and to calm the sexual energy. I was told that Majoram can also assist. Patchouli can be a toner, but those are not things I know from experience. Okay, for me, for me, it just works on being able to communicate the things that I would normally be extremely dissociated from. So, yeah, that's what I have to say, and I'm going to eat the food while it's warm. So this is my reading about the blue kyanite. So if you work with blue kyanite, do get informed with everything to do with extortion cults, ritual abuse, um, okay, because it's basically healing something that without healing very likely you will no longer be or no longer want to be. But when we do tend to that, those are the things that arrive, because they're things that try to keep people from talking, and they try to create or recreate trauma bonds, so that people won't speak and won't heal. And certain people may come from lineages regarding that. I go back to the reading of the lady occultist that was holding the jade egg with the glove that was not hers, and she could be coming from such lineage, and that could have affected her children. And the issue of the sovereign girl came about for some reason. So I don't know exactly what is on. And those were, what you have to understand, occultism is imbued with MK Ultra and MK often and psychology and cult. And when those are practiced in cult-like environment, and the healing is used to basically create a cult-like environment so people won't speak, then even the people themselves, like Epstein said, it was done to them, and they just think that it creates a deep relation, whereas healing is transmuting trauma bond to safe and sane relational pattern that accommodates for freedom and sovereignty and connection.